It was an enjoyable experience. I will tell you that. I sat there. I had a smile on my face for about 2 hours. Normally these games are stressful. They get the heart racing a little bit, but that didn't really happen tonight. I just kind of was able to sit there. I was able to relax. I was able to watch. I was able to say, "Hey, this Terrace Reed guy, he looks pretty good." I thought that it was uh, the thing that was so impressive about it to me is that we've kind of seen flashes of what UConn can be offensively this year, right? That it hasn't been a consistent every night kind of a thing, but we've seen moments where they've looked really, really good. And prior to that 2 week stretch between the first St. John's loss and the Creighton loss, we've seen UConn be a really, really good, like top 5 in the country defensive team. We just haven't seen those two things come together at the same time for 40 minutes. And this was the first time, T.O., that we really saw that from UConn. And I probably watched this team and program as closely as anybody that covers the sport. And this was the first time where I saw this group look for an entire game, for a full 40 minutes, like a team that could go out and play with and beat the likes of Arizona, the likes of Michigan, the likes of Duke, and the championship caliber teams. We knew that this was in there. This was the first time that we really saw it for 40 consecutive minutes.
I mean, it was a thorough beating, especially in the second half. Obviously, UConn jumped out on them, but I'm sitting there watching the second half. It was like, oh, sweet Lord. And it wasn't anything like crazy. Like you look at the rebounding discrepancy. It was only 4 in favor of UConn. They didn't turn it over all that much. St. John's only had 8 turnovers. But it was like stop after stop after stop. And then them changing some things up as far as switching is concerned on the perimeter certainly helped, because I think it really threw St. John's for a loop, and they struggled adjusting, and those guys never really got comfortable. A lot of catching and holding. And that happens when something new comes out and you weren't quite prepared for it, and those things happen. But it's, I mean, what a performance defensively. I mean, just so physical on every drive. They were sharp, and it seemed like everything St. John's did was a half step slow, and a big grin across Dan Hurley's face for good reason, because his guys really performed. I will say, though, like we've seen what UConn can be offensively, it wasn't like they shot the lights out. This was utter domination on the defensive end of the floor. UConn going 7 for 25 from 3. That's not their best. That's the crazy part about this whole ordeal.
Yeah, Tio, can you expand a little bit on the switching stuff and the impact that has? Because I think this is the first time that I've seen a Dan Hurley team actively go to that switching defense as a tool to try to change something up, as opposed to like a Hail Mary and hoping that they're going to find a way to be able to get. Like we saw some switching last year when they couldn't guard anybody, right? This was the first time that we've seen a really, really good defensive team use this as part of the game plan that I can remember in this iteration of the UConn Huskies.
I mean, it just comes down to like certain set plays. Are you able, like St. John's loves to get their guys going downhill fast and physical. Well, if you're cutting off those angles at the beginning of the possession, it's really hard to get that momentum. And St. John's, a team that, again, has a lot of guys that can make a shot or two. Sometimes creating those looks, if you're not Zuby Ejiofor, like it can be difficult if you don't have an angle to pursue the rim or pursue the paint in order to kick out. So switching alleviates a lot of those problems simply by putting your guy in front sooner if you're able to communicate. And if you're communicating at a high level, those things work really well. And keep in mind, too, a lot of those guys, when you go with Solo Ball, Silas Demery, with even Mullins in the game, like size guards, it allows you to do that and maintain that level of physicality. And if you weren't prepared for something like that, it can really throw off the flow of your offense.
This was the 1,024th game coached by Rick Pitino in his career. 40 points are the fewest scored by his team in any of those games. St. John's also hadn't allowed a 15-0 run in a game all season. The Red Storm allowed an 18-0 run in the first half and then a 16-0 run in the second half. So they allowed 2 such of those runs in one game. Rob, when you think about the previous game against St. John's, one of the big concerns, I think, heading into this one that a lot of UConn fans had was how were they going to deal with the with the physicality that the front court brought from St. John's, with the Bryce Hopkins, with the size of Dylan Mitchell, who, by the way, was 0 for 4 tonight from the floor, with a Ruben Prey, with Zuby, obviously, who went off last game. It was a team effort, and everybody seemed to have stepped their game up. Nobody stepped their game up more, though, than Terrace Reed, who tonight became the only player in the last 15 seasons to have at least 20 points, 10 rebounds, 5 blocks, and 3 assists in a single game. And Dan Hurley said, this is not a direct quote, I'm paraphrasing here in the post game. He said, look, like
Thank you for paraphrasing.
I'm going to paraphrase Danny Hurley here. Yeah. He said there's only one way to do that. He said basically, like, our team is only going to be as good as Terrace Reed is this year. Point blank. Like, we are going to go as far as Terrace takes us this year. What was different about his play in this game versus what happened in the Garden on the 6th, you think?
I thought that, one, it was a little bit of foul trouble in the first game, but it was Zuby was the one that won the matchup early, and I think that it got Terrace a little bit rattled at the start, and it was something where when he is aggressive and when he is sharp and when he is playing like a grizzly bear, which is what they like to call him, you get moments like that and you get performances like this. And I don't know if it's just a confidence thing. I don't know if it's an aggressiveness thing. I don't know if it's simply like when he's locked into a game, he can be this dominant, and then sometimes he's just not locked in. If it's an attention thing, I don't know exactly what it is, but this was, I thought it wasn't just what he did offensively. It was the way that he was able to defend. It was the space that he was able to take up. It was the rotations to kind of come over from the backside and block some of those drives that, he got Bryce Hopkins a couple of times. And the thing that was most impressive to me is that this wasn't like something where it was an out-of-body performance, right? Nothing that he did was really all that complicated or all that difficult. It was, he got the right seal, he got the ball, and he basically laid it in, right? He was able to create the angle he needed so that when someone entered the ball to him, he just had to catch it and turn around and dunk it. He was able to wedge out Zuby Ejiofor so that instead of being able for him to get his angle, he was able to force him into like an 8-foot jump hook, which is a much more difficult shot. Like, this is a performance that is replicable. Like, I think that we can see something like this again. It wasn't like he's out there making a bunch of threes or making a bunch of no-look passes or doing anything that is beyond just like the basic part of what he is asked to do within this system, which is why kind of I feel good about seeing more of this kind of thing from him. And I think Dan is right that this is what you need and this is what gives UConn their ceiling. But it's not like he did anything different than we normally see. He just did a lot of it, and it worked tonight.
I think the interesting part about what you're saying about all that stuff is, like, you talk about him sealing, you talk about him positionally, like, he did his early work today. Mm-hmm. Like, and if you're doing your early work, you stay out of foul trouble. And what I mean by that is on defense, you understand your scouting report, you know where guys are going to be. So you're doing your early work and you're in position correctly. You talk about your seal ups on Ejiofor. Like, if you're timing those right, you're not going to get in foul trouble. A lot of those things come down to the preparation of the game. And I'm telling you, if St. John's is just a little bit off, or anybody UConn plays is just a little bit off, and this UConn team is locked in and Terrace Reed is locked in, you can forget about it, because once he gets the ball with correct positioning, you're finished. There's not a whole lot you can do about it. I do want to give, we talked about the switching around the perimeter. A big part of his 6 blocks were that they were switching on the perimeter. They were maintaining body contact without fouling, and it wasn't allowing St. John's to use their explosiveness and their athleticism around a rim. That's where those block shots come from. There were a couple times, UConn switching. Bryce Hopkins is out on the perimeter. He's holding on to it. He tries to drive, and because there's physicality on the floor before he's able to extend up, Terrace Reed's able to linger around because they're not exploding to their peak of their jump. So Terrace Reed's able to come over. 6 blocks is great. You got to have a guy clean it up. But at the same time, if you're getting 6 blocks, the other guys are doing their jobs too, because that means they're squaring up, they're making shots difficult. And then on top of that, you have the grizzly bear down there just getting work done. So just a complete and dominant defensive effort by UConn all the way around. Kudos to them. Kudos to Dan. They can celebrate a little bit. They got another tough game coming up on Saturday.
We talked about Terrace Reed. Let's hear from the man who caught up with Rob and To just a couple of minutes ago.
And now let me welcome onto the field of 68 after dark, Terrace Reed, fresh off of 20 points, 11 rebounds, 6 blocks in a blowout win over St. John's today. Terrace, what got into you tonight, man? Where did this come from?
I mean, it's come from Jesus, man. Jesus, the Lord been gracious to me. The Lord been so good to me. I mean, I put my faith up in Him, and I mean, I get all my confidence, my strength from Him. So all credit goes to Him.
What does this say about you guys going up against the St. John's team, the most hype matchup of the night? You guys hold this team to 0 of their last 24 from the field. What does that say about your defense, and what kind of confidence does this breed moving forward?
I feel like sky's the limit for us this year. I mean, knowing how tough it was coming from that Creighton game, knowing how difficult it was losing that game, and really just go out there and compete every game, every possession, every opportunity, knowing that our next loss, we're not champions anymore. So knowing that one of the goals this year was really get a Big East regular season championship, and knowing that St. John's was going to be one of the teams we have to beat. So coming out there with such a dominant performance really should just everything started clicking, and it's about to be March. So that should really give us that boost for the tourney.
Yeah, one of the things that that Coach Hurley said after the game in the press conference was that it's kind of this season kind of hinges on you, right? Like when you play like this, it takes UConn to a different level, and when you don't have your best games, it makes it really difficult for this group to win at the level that this program expects, right? Do you embrace that pressure? Is that the kind of thing that you came to this program for?
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing. It's one thing saying you wanted it, and it's another thing actually going through it. So I remember telling the coaching staff, like, "Hey, I wanted this pressure," and then when you're through it, I mean, the standard and the bar is raised so much, a lot higher than it was last year. So knowing that I done had weeks of practices where coaching staff is on me, I mean, I'm having games where last year were acceptable or not good this year. So I mean, it's all I ever prayed for, and that's literally what I asked for, what I paid for. So just trusting the guys around me, trusting the coaching staff, and bringing in my all, literally every possession, every day. And that's what it's going to take for us to win the national championship.
You know, you can look at this one and be happy about it, but you got a scrappy Seton Hall team coming in next. How long do you enjoy this one, and then when do you move on to Seton Hall and Shaheen's guys?
I enjoy it until we got 2 hours left until midnight, and then tomorrow morning we got focused on Seton Hall, because the worst thing we could do is just ride this high until Saturday, and then we blow that game. So stay even kill is going to be the mindset for us, knowing that we got to come in tomorrow, watch film, take the good, the bad, the ugly, and go out there and dominate the rest of the Big East play.
That's the big man, Terrace Reed, for the UConn Huskies. Again, a historic night for him. It was also the last game Alex Caravan will play in that arena. Dan Hurley made it a point in the press conference as well, Rob, to say that, you know, we kind of sent AK out on the right foot in this game, too. You know, 2 for 7 from 3, went 6 for 13 from the field with 14 points for AK. But, I mean, he's meant so much to this UConn team over the course of the last 5 years. When you think about AK as a player, and I want to get to the St. John's side of this as well, but what he's meant to Dan Hurley's teams throughout the years, you know, to send him off in this way, I got to imagine means a lot to UConn fans.
Yeah, it does. And it was cool to see him get the reception that he got when he walked off of that court the first time. You know, it's tough for UConn seniors because they basically have 2 senior nights. It's like your last night in front of the fans that have the tickets to the People's Bank Arena. And then you have your last night in front of the fans that have season tickets to Gamble Pavilion. So it's you get a couple of those, right? And I expect on Saturday night there are going to be quite a bit of tears from the Caravan family and from the Hurley family as well. You know, Dan, the most successful period of Dan Hurley's coaching career has come when Alex Caravan and only Alex Caravan has been on that roster. So you know, maybe that's all it was. Maybe he was the reason that that UConn has had all the success, and it had nothing to do with Dan's coaching after all. He's such a floor raiser. Like, that's what he does. You know, he's not a guy that is going to go out and win you a game the way that Terrace Reed won this game, or win you a game the way that, you know, Silas Demery won the game against Providence. He's never going to go and get you like 28 and 10 boards and 7 assists and put in that kind of performance. But you know that he's going to do a job defensively. And, you know, he might not be the best defender, but he's going to be in the right spot and he's going to be in the way and he knows how to use his length. He's going to make open threes. He's going to make the right pass. He's going to be able to drive and get a paint touch and finish when he gets there. The ball's not going to stick with him. He's the quintessential role guy and like the perfect glue piece that makes everything else around him work better. And I don't know what his ceiling is, T.O. You might be able to speak better to this because you watch more NBA than I do. I don't know what his ceiling is as an NBA player, but I would be shocked if he wasn't just like a good role player in the league for the next 8 to 10 years. Like shooting, passing, and decision-making is kind of what matters, especially when you're someone 6'8" and his size. I think he's just going to be on rosters for a while in the NBA and make himself quite a bit of money doing it.
We're just celebrating how good he's been. We're celebrating how good he's been. I think it's going to be a hard adjustment for him at the next level. That all being said, still plenty of coin to be made as a professional basketball player somewhere. But I think his physical limitations are really going to be an issue in the NBA. But that being said, unbelievable college player. You kind of set me up, and I'm not known to lie. To lie. If there's one thing you guys know from over the last 4 or 5 years, the kid will tell the truth. I'm a big fan of what he's done in college. And hey, man, there's a lot of great college players that get drafted in the lottery and don't pan out in the NBA. He's not going to be drafted in the lottery. I'm sure he'll go to summer league. He might get a training camp, and then we'll see what happens from there. What he does possess are like all those skill things that people really appreciate. But I mean, like you look at the guy last year who was on that UConn team, Liam McNeely, who was, in my opinion, guys, was just a better player. Like he's having a hard time. And I think it's going to be tough for him to advance, but that doesn't matter to me right now whatsoever. Mm-hmm. What matters to me is that Alex Karaban is honored correctly on senior night coming up because like he has been incredible. He's been an incredible college player. And, size and shooting. I love your point about being a floor raiser. That's a good one. But I think this year, a couple seasons ago, or maybe even last year, it was like, well, Alex Karaban's going to be our guy. Well, that's not really his shtick. His shtick is being an ancillary piece. But when he's on the floor, I use the term settle down guy a lot. I mean, everybody takes a deep breath when Alex touches the ball. So he's a fantastic college player. He's absolutely terrific for Dan Hurley and fits him to a T. And he's had a heck of a 5 years. So I'm happy for him and happy that he got a warm reception as he was leaving the floor.